feel like everyone had that one character they wanted to be growing up. For me, it was Riddick. I watched Pitch Black and was instantly obsessed with the character. I wanted those eyes so bad, and Vin Diesel actually became my favorite actor at the time because of it. So when I saw a Riddick game on the shelf, I just knew I had to have it. Now, movie tie-in games weren't usually known for being great at the time, but this one felt a bit different from a lot of the games I had played. It was really dark and super brutal, and it did a lot more than just copy scenes from a movie. But stepping back from the nostalgia, the movie tie-in reputation, and the cult following it eventually built.
You afraid? I'm not. The dark is afraid of me.
What was The Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay?
Your destiny lies elsewhere, Riddick. So I'm going to give you a gift. Yes, you have been blind for far too long. But your world is about to get more colorful.
By the early 2000s, movie tie-in games had a reputation. A big film would release, and a game usually showed up around the same time. The timeline was tight, the expectations were simple, and the goal was usually pretty clear. Just recreate the movie. That meant recognizable locations, familiar characters, and levels built around the biggest scenes from the film. Sometimes those games turned out okay, but the development window was usually pretty short, and the focus just stayed on getting something out alongside the movie. Because of that, most licensed games carried a certain expectation with them. People had seen the pattern enough times that the words movie tie-in almost felt like a warning label. That's the environment Escape from Butcher Bay walked into. The game released in 2004, right around the same time the Riddick universe was expanding with the Chronicles of Riddick film. From the outside, it just looked like another licensed game arriving next to a movie release. Starbreeze Studios took the project in a different direction though. Rather than just retelling events from the films, the team built a story that sits earlier in the timeline. The game works as a prequel to the film Pitch Black, which is the first one, exploring a moment that had only been mentioned before. Riddick's time inside a prison called Butcher Bay, a facility with a reputation that no one escapes.
That shank, so it ain't yours.
Come take it.
You got a hearing problem. I said everything I see belongs to me.
See this? It belongs to me.
That idea shaped the entire structure of the game. The story stays centered on that one location, Butcher Bay, a prison built to contain the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy. Life inside the facility has its own kind of rhythm. The guards are on patrol, the inmates form their own hierarchies. Movement through the prison always feels controlled and restricted. The experience spends time in that system. You move through the prison as another inmate trying to figure out where you stand, who you can trust, and where an opportunity might appear.
You need to either kill Bam in the ring or manage to find your way into the drug interrogation room and beat the shit out of Abbott.
Vin Diesel returned to voice Riddick, which really helped keep the character grounded in the same version people knew from the films. And he also did more than just provide his voice or his likeness, because Riddick is very much Vin Diesel's character. He knows how he acts, how he talks, how he moves. So he helped with dialogue development, directing cinematics, character design. He even helped with some of the game design itself.
Call me crazy. I think he wants to hold out for more.
You could be right. 22%.
All those decisions shaped the identity of the project. Escape from Butcher Bay focuses on one place, one situation, and one goal. Finding a way out of a prison that was built to keep everyone inside.
It ain't the fall that gets you.
Once you actually get into the game a little bit, there's something that becomes pretty clear. Butcher Bay isn't really built like a traditional level-based shooter. The prison functions more like one large facility that you gradually move through. Areas connect back into each other, hallways loop into new sections, and the deeper you go, the more restricted everything gets. It feels like you're navigating a real place instead of just jumping between missions. The prison itself has layers. The upper sections hold the general population, cell blocks, courtyards, places where inmates can just kind of spend time and hang out, and where different gangs start to control pieces of the block. Guards still watch everything, but the prison has its own internal hierarchy.
Hey, prisoner, show yourself.
Further down, the structure changes a bit. Security tightens, the environment becomes more industrial, and the prison starts to feel harsher. There's fight clubs, there's no sunlight anywhere, no actual courtyards. Mining tunnels, these working areas, places where inmates are pushed into labor. Then deeper still, the facility becomes even more controlled. The highest security section stores prisoners in cryogenic cells, waking them up only a few minutes each day for some exercise. By the time you reach that point, the prison barely feels like a place for people anymore. It just feels like storage. Moving through all of this, you're constantly interacting with other inmates. Some trade information, some offer favors, others are looking for leverage. The smaller conversations turn into side quests, and those side quests turns into ways you can move through the prison.
Okay, let's roll the dice. It's nothing. You lose, man.
The entire place runs on reputation and opportunity. At the same time, the guards maintain constant pressure. Cameras watch everything you do, security systems control access points. There's always patrols moving around, and every section just feels monitored. As you go deeper into Butcher Bay, the tone just slowly shifts. The population areas feel tense, but they feel alive. The lower sections are darker and more controlled. By the time you reach the deepest levels, the prison starts to feel like a machine. And that's what makes Butcher Bay work so well. The entire facility feels like a system designed to keep control.
Beautiful.
Once you actually start moving through Butcher Bay, the gameplay settles into a rhythm kinda right alongside it. You're constantly shifting between stealth, close quarter combat, and gunfights depending on the situation. It all blends together because the prison keeps putting you in these tight, controlled spaces. Early on, you're really relying heavily on your hands or whatever you can find. Shivs, clubs, basic prison weapons that fit the environment. Fights happen at close range most of the time, and the melee system has a bit more depth than you might expect. You have left and right hooks, uppercuts, haymakers, quick jabs. The strike that comes out depends on how you're moving when you attack. If you step into it, you'll throw a haymaker. If you shift directions, you could throw a hook or an uppercut. After a while, you start choosing strikes instead of just pressing attack.
No surveillance. Means this never happened.
Blocking plays a big role in that also. You can guard incoming hits, and if your timing lines up well, you can actually counter. Those counters can flow straight into execution-style takedowns that end the fight immediately. When that rhythm clicks, you can string attacks together in these short combos. A jab to stagger, a hook to push someone off balance, and an uppercut to finish it. When the timing slips, you really feel it. Spacing and distance really matter. Overextending leaves you open. Getting surrounded in a hallway turns into a problem really fast. You're reading animations, watching how enemies move, and choosing when to strike and when to block. The improvised weapons adds a lot of weight to that system. A shiv increases the speed and the damage. The club gives you more power, but it's a lot slower. They shorten the fights, but they don't remove the need to think. You still manage positioning and timing and what kind of attacks you're throwing out. And then stealth runs alongside all this. You crouch and move quietly, watch patrol routes. You wait for someone to turn before crossing a hallway. You isolate guards instead of engaging groups, and you can drag bodies away to keep attention down. A lot of these encounters give you room to decide how you want to approach them. You can fight through it, wait for a gap and slip past, then the group quietly before committing. Those small decisions shape the pace of each section.
Need to turn off this fan.
Once guns become usable, that tempo stays deliberate. Your health regenerates if you step away from damage for a moment, which really encourages using cover and resetting fights instead of just pushing forward recklessly. Most all of the gunfights happen in confined areas, so your positioning matters a lot more than your speed. The prison also really reinforces that survival mindset through its systems. There's healing stations placed throughout the prison, and you have to physically reach them to restore your health fully. You don't fully regenerate your health between fights. If you get beat up, you're thinking about where the nearest station is and whether you can get to it safely. There's also health upgrade stations hidden in certain areas of the prison. Finding one permanently increases your health bar. That makes exploration feel meaningful in a practical way. You're scanning the rooms for weapons and guards, but you're also looking for long-term survivability. Those upgrades are really important, especially in later sections where the fights get a lot heavier. So you start thinking about the prison in layers. Where are the patrol routes? Where is the nearest healing station? If the fight goes bad, where can I fall back? That awareness becomes part of the loop. You observe, move, commit, and recover. You look before acting and then act when the timing feels right. Then you reassess the situation. That pattern carries through most of the game. Managing risk more than clearing objectives, and then paying attention to movement, spacing, and opportunity. The melee rewards timing and reading your opponent, stealth rewards patience, and the gunplay rewards positioning, and the healing and upgrade stations reward exploration. Over time, that approach just becomes instinct. You slow down before stepping into a new area, check corners, you think about your health before starting a fight, and you plan an exit strategy before committing. Everything feeds into survival. You're working your way through Butcher Bay one situation at a time, and that steady, controlled pace defines the moment-to-moment experience.
You done, Abbott? Or you need more?
You're a hard-ass, Riddick, but we're about to soften you up.
You don't know what you're fucking with.
Hey, just real quick, if you've made it this far into the video, I just want to say thanks for hanging out with me for a little bit. I really do appreciate you taking some time here in the save room. If you're enjoying the video and you haven't subscribed yet, consider joining us. There's already a lot of content here and there's always more coming. I really enjoy talking about some of these games that just don't get brought up anymore. So let's bring them back together here in the save room and keep these memories alive. If you like it, drop a like and leave a comment also. Let me know if you ever played this and what you thought about it. And if you haven't played it, I'd still love to hear what you're thinking so far. Those conversations are honestly my favorite part of doing this. And for all the mobile viewers, there's also the hype button. It gives the video hype points and basically tells the algorithm, hey, this video is good, more people should see it. It's only there for the first 7 days of the video's live, so if you're catching this after that, a like still goes a long way. And last thing, I want to give a massive shout out to all the Save Room members and to everyone who supported the Riddick streams with Super Chats. You all are awesome, and I'm really glad you're here with me. But that's enough of all that, let's get back to Riddick and talk about the biggest thing with this character, his eyes. One of the mechanics that really defines Butcher Bay, and the character in general, is Riddick's shine eyes. And before even getting into how it works in gameplay, it's worth talking about where it comes from. If you look at the wider Riddick lore, there's multiple stories for how he got his eyes. My favorite is a story about him making a deal with a doctor for 20 menthol cools while he was locked up. His eyes were altered so he could see in complete darkness, and the trade-off was extreme sensitivity to bright light. That's where the goggles come from. In the game, he has a spirit guide that talks to him in his head, and she gives him the powers. And there's a second explanation in the films later on. I think never fully understanding how he really got him just adds to the mysteriousness of the character. But either way, the end result is the same. He sees in the dark, and bright light hits him really hard. The game actually lets you feel that. If you walk into a heavily lit room without goggles, the bloom really ramps up. The screen washes out in a way that is uncomfortable for the player. It hurts your eyes. Looking toward a light source almost feels like staring straight into the sun. It's a small detail, but it gives you the sense of what that condition would actually be like. Darkness feels natural and more comfortable. The brightness feels sharp and painful. Once you start moving through the prison with that in mind, the mechanic really clicks. When you step into heavy shadow, your vision adjusts and the space stays readable. The guards don't get that same clarity. Their visibility completely drops. They move more cautiously and they react slower. So you start looking at rooms differently. You're still watching enemies, but now you're also watching the light, where it's coming from, how far it spreads, where the shadow lines actually sit. If you're standing in solid darkness, the guards can walk right past you. If they think something's wrong, they hesitate. They fire into the darkness without fully tracking you, while you can see them the entire time. And then the game gives you another layer on top of that. You can shoot out lights, break bulbs, drop sections of a room into shadow. The moment a light goes out, the entire space changes. A room that felt exposed suddenly becomes usable. The guards react right away, they call it out, they sweep the area. They shift how they move because visibility just changed. And that's when it turns from a cool ability into something strategic. Before stepping into a room, you start thinking about lighting. If I take out that light bulb, what opens up? If this side of the hallway is dark, can I move through it safely?
When I get you, I'm gonna send your sorry ass straight to hell.
Darkness becomes part of your route. You isolate one guard inside it, you reposition inside it. If things start to get messy, you slip back into the shadows and let the room settle a bit before moving again. And all of it fits the setting. The prison is built around surveillance, these floodlights, cameras, patrol routes. Everything depends on being seen. Shine Eyes gives you the leverage inside that system. You're shaping visibility instead of just reacting to it. Because it ties directly into Riddick as a character, it never feels like a random stealth gimmick. He operates well in the darkness, he adapts to hostile environments. When visibility drops, he's at his prime. You can feel that through the mechanics. After a while, checking light sources becomes automatic. Whenever you walk into a room, the first thing you look for isn't the guards, it's the light bulbs. You want to take them out and then figure out where the guards are. Darkness becomes part of how you move through the game, part of how you survive. And once that mindset settles in, every space feels like something you can adjust instead of just navigate.
Riddick, tell me. What do you see? Everything.
Like I mentioned at the start, this is a prequel. Escape from Butcher Bay sits right at the beginning of the Riddick timeline. It happens before Pitch Black, Dark Fury, and before the Chronicles of Riddick. The whole thing is framed as a memory. It opens with Riddick alone years later, and something pulls him back to how he ended up inside Butcher Bay in the first place.
You have learned to use your gift well, Riddick. And yet there is such a dark soul lurking behind those magnificent, bright eyes.
These are a courtesy of a slam preacher.
And then we cut to the transport ship. William J. Johns is bringing him in for the bounty. The same Johns we meet later in Pitch Black. You can already see the dynamic between them. John sees a payday, and Riddick sees someone who thinks he has the upper hand. Riddick gets processed, stripped down, and dropped into general population.
Secure your weapon, Johns. Good to see you too, Warden. So, the famous Mr. Riddick.
And the story starts small. There's no big speech about escaping or grand declaration, just conversations in cell blocks. Tension between inmate groups, and guards like Abbott who immediately decide Riddick needs to be kept in line. You're learning the space the same way he is, one interaction at a time.
Personally bring hell down on you if you don't let him go.
And then it shifts. Riddick kills Rust, one of the gang leaders. That move changes everything around him. People start watching him differently. Some back off, some want revenge. It really sets the tone for how he operates, direct and fast. A riot breaks out not long after Rust dies, and he uses that chaos to slip into the lower levels of the prison, eventually finding his way into the sewer system. And down there, things get a little weird.
It ain't the fall that gets you. It's a sudden stop at the bottom.
You meet Pope Joe. He's been surviving in the tunnels. You deal with the dwellers crawling around through the dark. And this is where the Shine Eyes moment happens. Shira, Riddick's spirit guide, speaks to him. Something inside him shifts, and he can see clearly in the darkness now. The game doesn't pause to over-explain that. It just lets that moment sit there. It feels like part of the myth. With that advantage, Riddick pushes forward. He steals a guard uniform, works his way towards the spaceport. For a second, it feels like he might actually walk out. And then the prison throws another layer in front of him. He needs retinal data from a guard to pass through security. That pulls him right back into Abbott's orbit. Abbott keeps showing up. He's the face of the prison's authority. Every time Riddick moves forward, Abbott is somewhere nearby to push him back. Riddick gets recaptured and sent deeper into the facility, down to double max. Like I said, double max feels heavier, it's more controlled. He has to build reputation all over again, earn trust, figure out who's holding influence. He gets maneuvered into a situation meant to end him. Abbott shows up again, and this time they both don't walk away from it.
No surveillance. Means this never happened.
After that, things widen a bit. Riddick links up with Jagger Valance, an inmate with his own plan to get out. They move into the mining facility, get a bomb to create a distraction, and that distraction turns into full chaos.
What's hell without a little fire?
Creatures from under the prison break loose. Sections of the prison start falling apart. Johns comes back into the picture during all this. The dynamic shifts a bit. There's still tension, but survival starts mattering more than pride. Eventually, the story moves into Triple Max, the deepest level of Butcher Bay. Inmates kept in cryosleep, heavy automation, everything feels colder and a bit more mechanical, and very clean. Riddick finds a weakness in that system. He breaks free.
This trip, these visions, all a blur. I only held on to reach my destination. But one gets tired of being taken for a ride.
And he fights his way upward towards Warden Hoxie while the prison continues unraveling around him. In the final stretch, Johns helps him get through certain areas. It's practical, temporary. Once they reach the warden's ship, Riddick takes control, Johns ends up on the floor, and the ship lifts off. And that's the escape.
You know, John, statistically, takeoffs are the most dangerous.
No shit. I thought you said landings were.
Yeah. Guess it depends on who you have at the control.
What makes the story work is how it's told. Most of it unfolds while you're playing. Conversations in hallways, exchanges with inmates, guards talking over comms. You're picking up the narrative as you move through the prison. It feels connected to the environment instead of just separated from it. And in terms for what it adds to the overall lore, it fills in a huge early chapter. You see how Riddick thinks, how he reads a system, builds leverage step by step, how he adapts when things shift around him. By the end, his reputation makes sense. You've just watched him break down a maximum security prison from the inside. And it was supposed to be the most locked down in the entire galaxy, for the most dangerous people. When the flashback closes and the timeline moves towards pitch black, you carry that context with you. You've seen how he got the eyes, and you understand why his name means something.
They realize this, and that is why they are coming. Not like the others. They are different. The only way you can stop them is if you know who you are, what you are.
When Escape from Butcher Bay came out in 2004, the expectations weren't huge. I already talked about what the movie tie-in landscape looked like back then. People weren't bracing for something groundbreaking. But then the reviews started landing, and the tone shifted pretty fast. Scores were strong across the board. A lot of outlets were openly impressed. You started seeing phrases like one of the best licensed games popping up in early coverage of it. Some reviewers even went as far as saying they enjoyed it more than the actual Riddick films it was tied to, which is a pretty crazy thing to say about a game that launched alongside a movie. A big part of that praise centered around how everything worked together. Critics kept pointing out the blend of mechanics, the shooting, stealth, melee, exploration, light adventure elements. Instead of feeling like separate systems awkwardly sitting next to each other, they flowed. You could spend one stretch talking to inmates and handling side missions, then move into a stealth sequence, then get dragged into a close quarters fight, then transition into a gunfight, and it all felt like one consistent experience. Reviewers at places like Game Informer and GameSpot specifically called that out. They talked about how cohesive it felt, how smooth the transitions were. That hybrid design became one of the main talking points in early coverage for this game.
They talk about. Yeah, all right. You got yourself a fight. I'll see you in the ring.
The atmosphere also came up a lot. Writers talked about immersion. The prison felt dense, confined, real in a way that stuck with you. The lighting system, the shadow work, the layered security levels, it all contributed to this feeling that you were inside a functioning facility instead of a set of game levels. People noticed the attention to detail. Of course, the critics weren't highlighting massive plot twists or cinematic spectacle, but they were focusing on how naturally the narrative fit into the space. The dialogue happening while you're moving, information being passed through inmates and guards, the story unfolding as part of the environment instead of interrupting it. That approach landed really well. There was also appreciation for how it handled the Riddick character. Vin Diesel's involvement gave it authenticity, and the tone matched what people expected from that universe. At the same time, the game stood on its own as a self-contained experience. When you look at how it was talked about during release, the word that keeps coming up is surprise. Reviewers and players expected something solid at best. What they got was something that felt carefully made, focused, and really confident. It picked up awards and year-end nods from multiple outlets, which reinforced this wasn't just good for a licensed game. It was being measured alongside other major releases that year. And that's really the key here. The conversation around Butcher Bay wasn't framed as better than expected for a movie game. It was framed as, this is actually really good.
When I get you.
That shift in perception is what defined the reception at the time. Butcher Bay came out, people played it, and the takeaway was simple. This was a game that took its world seriously, and everyone responded to that. Over time, Escape from Butcher Bay kind of found its place. When people talk about it now, cult classic comes up a lot. It's one of those games that keeps resurfacing in conversations years later. Original Xbox nostalgia threads, PC forums, Reddit posts asking what older games still hold up. Butcher Bay almost always shows up somewhere in that discussion. It gets called a hidden gem pretty often too, the kind of game that stuck with people who played it. even if it wasn't dominating every headline for years. And a lot of that comes down to how confident it feels looking back at it. When people revisit it now, they usually mention the same things, how impressive it was on the original Xbox, the lighting, the density of the prison, the way it moves between stealth, melee, and shooting without really feeling messy. The structure of the whole thing, it just feels deliberate. You'll see comments like, "I replayed this and forgot how good it was." That sentiment pops up again and again. It also never left the conversation around movie tie-ins. If someone asks for an example of licensed games that genuinely stood on their own, Butcher Bay is almost always mentioned. It's in retrospectives, it's in YouTube essays, and when people explain why it holds up, they usually point to the design. The pacing feels steady, the stealth still works, and the melee still has weight to it. The prison setting still feels memorable. Even years later, you can picture certain hallways, the cell blocks, the mining section, the way the lower levels connect. That kind of spatial memory says something about how strong the layout was. The prison itself plays a big role in that long-term appreciation. It feels focused and contained, purpose-built. A lot of modern retrospectives mention how tightly designed it feels compared to larger games that try to do everything at once. Then in 2009, it got another wave of attention with the Chronicles of Riddick Assault on Dark Athena. That release included a remastered version of Butcher Bay alongside a new campaign. For some people, that was their first time playing it. For others, it was a chance to revisit it with updated visuals. That re-release kept the game circulating and introduced it to a new group of players. You still see people reference the Dark Athena version specifically when talking about replaying it today. And when outlets look back at the best original Xbox games, Butcher Bay shows up regularly. IGN ranked it among the top Xbox games of all time. It sits alongside some heavy hitters from that generation. That kind of placement keeps it in the historical conversation. When you step back and think about what it became, it feels like one of those games people point to when talking about focused design. About atmosphere done right, a licensed game that treated its world seriously. Its legacy built slowly, through word of mouth, people replaying it years later and realizing it still holds up. Critics and fans bringing it up when the topic of strong early 2000s games comes up. So when people talk about Butcher Bay today, it usually comes with a kind of respect. It's remembered, and that alone says a lot.
Wait, Riddick, whoa, whoa, whoa.
No time like the present, Johns.
And that's Butcher Bay, a game that started as a movie tie-in and ended up carving out its own place in gaming history. It's one of those titles that sticks with you if you played it, and if you haven't, hopefully this gave you a reason to check it out. If you enjoyed spending some time in the save room with me today, consider subbing. There's a lot of content already on the channel and there's always more coming. I really enjoy bringing these older games back into the conversation and giving them the space they deserve. If you've played Butcher Bay, let me know what you remember about it, what stood out to you. And this is your first time hearing about it, I'd still love to hear your thoughts. For those of you watching on mobile, don't forget about the hype button if it's still within the first week. If not, a comment and a like still go a really long way. But I really appreciate you all for making it to the end. As always, I'll see y'all later.
What do you see?